I'm going to make a finger guard for my knife out of two dissimilar kinds of metals. I have copper and I have nickel, and I'm going to pin them together with brass pins that will be hidden. So in order to do that, on the milling machine, I mill 2 holes on each piece of metal, the exact same distance and depth. And then I epoxy them together and pin them with brass pins. And they're going to fit right on the ricasso, just like that. Now, I don't have enough room to pin the nickel to the steel, so I'm going to pin the nickel to the copper, like so. That'll give me a single piece of metal. These 2 pieces of nickel have a domed top, and they're about 10/1000ths off of flush. So I'm going to have to mill off the tops of these 2 nickel pieces to make them flat so they can fit flush against the brass. So the first thing I do is establish a 0 on top of the nickel. So I will move it over, loosen the quill lock, tighten the adjustment knob here, and then with the fine adjust, I take it down to where it just touches, and then I 0 the meter, and that's at 0. I'll back off a little bit, and I'll move the cutter out of the way, and then watching the meter, I'm going to take it down to 5/1000ths. Okay, that's 0, and then I'll take it down to 5/1000ths. Okay, we're ready to burn. And I'm set at about 1500 RPMs because I have a 1/2 inch milled bit in there. Okay. Take it out and look and see how close it comes. So after the copper and nickel pieces have been run through the mill and rough flattened, now it's time to go to the grinder belt, and I'm using 220 Cubitron, and this is to flatten the large surfaces. And after the belt sander, I go to the disc grinder. I got 120 grit paper on, and the purpose here is to make these surfaces dead flat so that they match together flush. That's flat. What I've got going today is I have tried to make 2 dissimilar metals fit together to make a finger guard. in order to do that, I had to take two pieces of metal and match them end to end. And the way to do that was to drill 2 holes in each one and then put pins in the holes, like so, and then match them together pin to pin. And I tried, I had to try 2 different methods, because what happened is, in order to get these holes exactly the same, and they have to be exactly the same, otherwise they won't fit together, I first used a hand punch to punch along a center line, and then I used a heavier punch to make the center punch deeper. And when I did that, I didn't realize, or I didn't see right off, that the hole, the punch hole, was not centered on the line. What I should have used from the beginning, instead of using these 2 punches and then running it through the drill press, what I should have done is I should have used one of these centering punches. These centering punches are useful because in order to get the holes lined up exactly on the center line, I could have put one of these into the mill and then centered it right on the line in the middle, the scribed line. That would have been perfect, as perfect as I could get. But since I did not do that, I wound up having to, I drilled the holes and they were not lined up on the line exactly. So I had to use a burr, which I set down into the hole, and then I moved the piece from end to end a little bit to oblong the hole. And that way, when I got these 2 pieces put together, they actually did, they're movable, but I can work with that. I can center it when I glue, because I'm going to glue with epoxy and put epoxy into the holes and then put the pins in there, and even though the holes are a little oblong, they will still fill with resin and they'll still be pretty tight. Okay, so I've got these 2. As a matched set, because once you drill the holes that match, you've got to keep these right side up and matched and not mixed, otherwise the error will be greater. Here's what the assembly looks like. The holes have been drilled, and I keep these labeled number 2s, and these are number 1s. I insert the pins, which, by the way, if you ever tried to make short pins like this with rounded edges so they don't catch, just manufacturing these little pins took me about an hour, with about 4 of them lost someplace on the floor and kicked underneath my gear, because they're hard to hold on to. I mean, you can't just hold them like this and run them through the grinder. Very difficult to do. Anyway, manufacture the pins, set them in the holes, and now you can see there's a lot of wiggle in there. A lot of wiggle. Grind those holes out so that the pieces would fit. All right, so here's number 2, number 2. Pins are in the hole. Slip them together. Now I can actually make these, I can actually clamp these when they're glued so that they're flush. One side flush, the other side is not flush, but that's because the materials weren't perfectly matched. And that's okay. I grind those out. Okay, so here's number 2. Here's number 1. All right, so now this is how this goes. I'm going to leave about 1/8 of an inch on the ricasso, and all I have to do is to glue these down so that it covers the end of the tang and is at least flush with the back side of the blade spine. It'll look something like that when it's glued up. It'll be tight.